Welcome to Mystery Bedtime Stories. Where in the world are you listening from tonight? If you enjoy these mysterious bedtime stories, don't forget to subscribe. It helps more dreamers find their way here. Now get comfortable, close your eyes, and let your thoughts drift away. I hope you enjoy the story. The air was thick with the scent of beeswax and lavender, a calming aroma that mingled softly with the flickering light of candles casting dancing shadows across the manor's stone walls. In a dimly lit chamber, King Edward IV lay propped against plump pillows, his features weary and pale, a stark contrast to the vibrant tapestries that adorned the room. Outside, a gentle breeze rustled the leaves of the ancient oaks, the only sound accompanying the quiet whispers of a heavy heart. Beside him sat Queen Elizabeth Woodville, her delicate hands clasped tightly in her lap. She watched her husband, her brow furrowed with both love and worry, as he turned his gaze towards the window. "What will become of our sons, Elizabeth?" he murmured, his voice barely rising above the crackling of the flames. "In this world of power and treachery, I fear for their futures." Elizabeth's heart ached at his words, the weight of her husband's unease settling heavily upon her. "They will need strength, strength beyond power," she replied, her voice steady yet laced with an undercurrent of fear. The flickering shadows seemed to echo her sentiment, swirling as if to remind her of the uncertainties that loomed like dark clouds overhead. The chamber felt both a sanctuary and a prison. Outside, the kingdom thrived under the warmth of the sun, yet within these walls, an ominous weight pressed down, a foreboding that wrapped around them like a shroud. Elizabeth leaned closer, her voice a mere whisper. "We must protect them, Edward, no matter the cost." King Edward's eyes glistened with unshed tears, his expression momentarily breaking as he considered the innocence of their boys, Edward and Richard. "They are but children, Elizabeth. What do they know of the world we lead?" His voice trembled, and a heavy silence enveloped them, punctuated only by the distant sounds of life beyond the manor. "Let us cherish these moments," Elizabeth said softly, her eyes reflecting both hope and sorrow. "For soon they will inherit a legacy that carries the weight of our choices." The candlelight flickered again, casting a momentary glow that illuminated the deep lines of worry etched upon her husband's face. As the sun began its descent, painting the sky in hues of orange and lavender, an unsettling thought lingered in the air. Change was coming, like a whisper carried on the wind. And in that moment, deep within the heart of the royal couple, the seeds of an impending mystery began to sprout, hinting at a future entwined with shadows and secrets. What did fate hold for their beloved sons in this fragile kingdom? The early light of dawn peeked through the heavy fog that cloaked the Tower of London, casting a soft, silver hue over the ancient stone. As the great gates creaked open, Edward IV and his younger brother, Richard of Shrewsbury, stepped cautiously into the vast courtyard. The air was crisp and cool, filled with a faint echo of distant seagulls and the gentle rustle of leaves overhead. Tall, imposing walls loomed around them, their shadows stretching long, creating a sense of both protection and confinement. Guards clad in polished armor stood at attention, their expressions inscrutable, yet their nods offered a semblance of welcome. Edward, sensing Richard's unease, turned to his brother with a reassuring smile. "Do not fear, Richard. Inside these walls, we are kings, he said, his voice steady, though a hint of uncertainty lingered. Richard's bright eyes darted around, taking in the grandeur of the fortress. "But why are we here, Edward? This place feels different," he replied, his small voice barely above a whisper, as if afraid to disturb the silence that enveloped them. The tower's stone seemed to breathe, exhaling a timeless weight that pressed gently against their youthful spirits. "Different can be good," Edward replied, his tone hopeful, though he too felt the chill of uncertainty. "Look at the gardens," he pointed, directing Richard's gaze towards the patches of vibrant flowers that peeked through the gray stones. "See how they bloom even in the shadow of the walls? This can be a place of strength for us." As they walked further into the tower, the sound of their footsteps echoed like whispers of the past, mingling with the faint clinking of armor. Edward's heart raced. The role of protector felt heavy on his young shoulders. He glanced at Richard, whose brow furrowed with confusion and curiosity. "We will learn to be brave, just as our father would want," Edward assured him, though he could not shake the gnawing doubt that lingered in his thoughts. The sunlight began to pierce through the fog, illuminating patches of the courtyard, creating a stark contrast between light and shadow. In that moment, Edward felt a flicker of resolve. This place, he thought, could be both a sanctuary and a prison. It was up to them to decide what it would become. "Let us explore," Edward suggested, with a growing sense of purpose as he took Richard's hand. Together, they ventured further into the heart of the tower, where the air was thick with history, and the whispers of the past seemed to beckon them closer, urging them to uncover the secrets hidden within its stone confines. The moon cast a soft, silvery glow through the narrow window of their small chamber, illuminating the faces of the two young princes as they lay nestled beneath the covers. Edward V turned onto his side, his eyes wide, reflecting the light like two bright stars. Richard of Shrewsbury, his younger brother, gazed at the ceiling, the patterns of the stonework shifting in the shadows. Outside, the sounds of the tower were hushed, a distant echo of the bustling world beyond, now shrouded in night. "Do you think the stars can find us here?" Richard whispered, his voice barely louder than the gentle rustle of the night air. "Of course," Edward replied, a reassuring smile playing on his lips. "They shine for everyone, even in the darkest places." He shifted closer, feeling the warmth of his brother's presence, an anchor in the uncertainty that surrounded them. Richard turned his head, his brow furrowed in thought. "But it feels different, doesn't it? Like we're too far from home." His small hands clutched the blanket, fingers entwined in the fabric, seeking comfort in its familiar texture. "What if we never leave this place?" Edward felt a weight settle in his chest. He wanted to promise his brother that they would return to their mother, to the gardens where laughter danced on the breeze. But the shadows in the room seemed to whisper doubts he could not voice. "We will," he asserted, his tone steady, though uncertainty flickered in his heart. "We just have to be brave. Mother says bravery is not the absence of fear, but the courage to face it." Richard nodded slowly, though his eyes betrayed his worry. "What if someone tries to take us away? What if we can't be like Father?" The mention of their father sent a shiver through Edward. He thought of the king's gentle smile, the strength he carried, and the heavy burden of the crown. "We have each other," Edward replied softly, a hint of conviction in his voice. As long as we are together, we can face anything. The moonlight danced across their faces, and for a moment, the weight of their circumstances felt lighter. Richard closed his eyes, and as he drifted into a dream, the contours of his mother's face appeared in his mind, her soothing voice wrapping around him like a warm embrace. "Good night, Richard," Edward whispered, watching as his brother succumbed to slumber. He turned his gaze toward the window, the gentle breeze carrying with it the scent of lavender, a reminder of home. Yet, as the shadows stretched and twisted in the flickering light, Edward could not shake the feeling that danger lurked just beyond the stone walls, waiting silently in the depths of the night. And so they lay, two innocent boys in a world filled with uncertainty, dreams intertwining with fears. As the moon kept watch over their small chamber, a guardian of secrets yet to unfold. In the grand hall of the Tower of London, sunlight filtered through the high windows, casting patterns of light across the polished stone floor. The air was thick with the scent of fresh parchment and wood polish, mingling with the faint aroma of herbs from the nearby gardens. Nobles gathered, their voices a low murmur as they exchanged glances, their expressions a tapestry of curiosity and caution. At the center stood Richard, Duke of Gloucester, a figure of both authority and intrigue, his presence commanding yet laced with an undercurrent of ambition. Richard adjusted the dark velvet of his cloak, the fabric whispering softly against his frame as he looked over the assembly. The banners of their houses hung proudly above them, vibrant against the solemnity of the stone walls, each symbol a reminder of the power struggles that twisted through the kingdom like a winding river. As he began to speak, the room fell into a hush, a stillness that settled like a soft blanket. "In the name of protection," Richard declared, his voice steady, "I stand before you today to assume guardianship over my young nephews, Edward and Richard. As their uncle, it is my duty to ensure their safety in these uncertain times." His words hung in the air, eliciting a ripple of murmurs from the gathered nobles, a mixture of approval and skepticism threading through their ranks. Some nodded in agreement, while others exchanged glances that spoke of hidden agendas and whispered doubts. The weight of Richard's assertion pressed upon the room like the stillness before a storm, the current of ambition swirling beneath the surface. He felt the gaze of the court upon him, their eyes scrutinizing, weighing his every word. Richard continued, a flicker of resolve igniting within him. "The realm is fragile, my friends. We must make firm choices to protect our future kings. In this castle, they shall not only be safe, but will thrive as the heirs to our legacy." The soft sound of his voice seemed to echo against the stone, wrapping around the nobles like a gentle fog, both soothing and unsettling. As he spoke, Richard's heart quickened with the thrill of power, the knowledge that he was stepping into a role that had been prepared for him by fate itself. He glanced towards the window where the sun continued its ascent, illuminating the hall with a warm glow. Outside, life went on, untouched by the shadows that crept within. "Together, we will navigate these waters," he added, his tone shifting to a more personal note, "and ensure that the boys grow into the kings they are destined to be." The finality of his words settled over the assembly, and for a moment, Richard felt the stirrings of hope and ambition intertwine, a promise of strength wrapped in uncertainty. Yet, as the nobles began to respond, the hushed voices rose once more, weaving a tapestry of loyalty and intrigue. Richard's heart raced with the realization that his path was fraught with danger, and the very guardianship he claimed could become a double-edged sword. The fate of his nephews rested in his hands, and with it, the secrets of the tower whispered in the shadows, waiting to be uncovered. The late afternoon sun bathed the tower courtyard in a warm golden light, casting long shadows that danced playfully across the stone floor. Edward V and his younger brother Richard were caught in a moment of pure joy, their laughter ringing out like music against the high walls that enclosed them. The two boys played a game of tag, darting between the towering stone columns, their feet whispering against the cool surface. "Catch me if you can," Edward called, his voice bright and free as he zigzagged away, his golden hair catching the sunlight like a halo. Richard followed closely behind, his small arms pumping with determination, cheeks flushed from the thrill of the chase. As they ran, the gentle rustle of leaves in the nearby trees played a soft symphony, blending with the distant sounds of life beyond the tower walls. Guards stood watch, their expressions calm yet vigilant, their armor glinting in the sun. They were the boys' silent protectors, yet the boys seemed blissfully unaware of the weight of their presence. Edward paused momentarily, his breath coming in quick gasps as he leaned against a cool stone pillar, glancing toward the heavy gates that led to the outside world. The streets beyond were alive with the sounds of merchants calling out their wares and children laughing, a stark contrast to the stillness that enveloped the tower. A flicker of longing crossed his face, a yearning for freedom that tugged at his heart. "Do you think if we whisper to the river, it may carry our words far beyond these walls?" Richard asked breathlessly, his eyes sparkling with innocence as he joined his brother at the pillar. Edward smiled softly, touched by his brother's hopeful imagination. "Perhaps the river knows our dreams, Richard. Maybe it will carry them to the stars," he replied, feeling the weight of his own responsibilities creeping back into his mind, like shadows lengthening in the fading light. Richard giggled, momentarily distracted from the heaviness that seemed to hang in the air. "Then let's make a wish. I wish for a grand adventure, and for the flowers to bloom everywhere." His small hands gestured animatedly, filling the courtyard with the lightness of his spirit. As they resumed their game, Edward chased Richard while keeping a watchful eye on the guards, a gentle reminder that their laughter was a privilege in a world fraught with uncertainty. Each giggle, each joyful shout, felt like a fleeting moment of defiance against the encroaching shadows. Yet, as the sun dipped lower, casting a soft glow that began to turn to twilight, Edward's heart grew heavier. The responsibilities of kingship pressed against him like a weight he was too young to bear. He wanted nothing more than to protect his brother, to ensure that their laughter could echo freely beyond the confines of the tower. As they collapsed onto the cool grass, panting and giggling, Edward looked up at the sky, the first stars beginning to twinkle above. "Maybe we can turn this place into a kingdom of joy," he mused softly, his voice barely above a whisper, his eyes reflecting the shimmering lights above. In that moment, as the shadows stretched longer, he felt the fragility of their happiness and the uncertainty of what lay ahead began to weave itself into the fabric of their innocent play. The flickering candlelight cast a warm glow in the small chamber, illuminating the faces of Edward and Richard as they settled onto the soft rug spread across the cool stone floor. The room, steeped in shadows, felt like a sanctuary, a cocoon away from the uncertain world beyond the walls of the tower. Outside, the gentle rustle of leaves whispered secrets to the evening breeze, while the distant calls of nightingales serenaded the twilight. "Tell me a story, Edward," Richard implored, his eyes sparkling with a mixture of innocence and curiosity. He tucked his small legs beneath him, his fingers brushing against the fabric of his tunic, a comforting gesture that grounded him in the moment. Edward smiled, his heart swelling with affection for his younger brother. "What kind of story would you like to hear?" he asked softly, settling back against the stone wall, drawing Richard closer. "About knights and dragons," Richard exclaimed, his voice filled with excitement. "And great adventures." "Very well," Edward began, his voice low and soothing. "Once upon a time in a kingdom far away, there lived a brave knight named Sir Cedric. He was known throughout the land for his courage and his heart, which was as pure as the morning dew." As he spoke, the candlelight flickered, creating a dance of shadows that seemed to join in the storytelling. Richard's eyes widened, completely absorbed in the tale. "What did he do?" he asked, leaping ahead in his imagination, his fingers now entwined in the fabric of Edward's tunic. "Sir Cedric was called upon to rescue a village threatened by a fearsome dragon," Edward continued, weaving the narrative with care. "The villagers were terrified, and many had lost hope. But Sir Cedric, with his trusty sword and shield, rode through the dark forest, determined to face the beast." "What happened next?" Richard leaned in, his breath catching in anticipation. "He found the dragon, but instead of fighting, he spoke to it. He learned that the dragon was not evil but had been misunderstood, protecting its treasure from those who sought to steal it. Together they made a pact, and the dragon became the village's guardian instead." Edward's voice softened, wrapping around them like a warm blanket. Richard giggled, his imagination soaring. "So they became friends." "Yes, the best of friends," Edward confirmed, a smile playing on his lips. "And from that day on, the village flourished, safe under the watchful eye of the dragon." Richard sighed contentedly, his eyelids growing heavy as the shadows deepened around them. "I wish we could have a dragon, too," he murmured, nestling closer to his brother. "Together, we could defeat any dragon," Edward whispered, his heart swelling with a protective instinct. "No matter how fierce, we would face it together." In that moment, the bond between the brothers felt unbreakable, a fortress of love and trust against the uncertainties that loomed beyond their little room. As the candle flickered, casting gentle light on their faces, Edward felt a deep resolve settle within him. He would protect Richard, just as Sir Cedric had protected the village. With the soft sounds of night embracing them, the brothers drifted into dreams filled with knights, dragons, and adventures yet to come, unaware of the shadows that lurked just outside their sanctuary, waiting for the right moment to reveal their secrets. The corridor of the tower stretched long and shadowy, echoing with the soft whispers of footsteps. Henry Stafford, Duke of Buckingham, moved with careful precision, his cloak trailing behind him like a whisper of night. The air was cool, laced with the faint scent of damp stone and the distant echo of rustling leaves outside, a reminder of the world beyond these ancient walls. He paused at a heavy wooden door, glancing over his shoulder to ensure he was alone in the dimly lit passage. The flickering candlelight cast dancing shadows, creating fleeting shapes that played tricks on the mind. Buckingham's heart raced, not from fear, but from the thrill of what lay ahead. A quiet tension surrounded him, wrapping tightly like a cloak against the chill. "Tonight, we weave the fates of princes," he murmured softly, more to himself than to any unseen confidant. The words felt heavy, laden with the weight of ambition. He had always believed that the strongest threads of power were spun in shadows, unseen by those who walked beneath the bright light of day. As he leaned closer to the door, the sound of his pulse quickened, an echoing reminder of the urgency that thrummed through his veins. The chamber beyond held secrets, and the princes, young Edward and Richard, lay unaware of the currents swirling around their fate. Buckingham's eyes narrowed as he stole a glance through the small window embedded in the door. There, he could see them. Two innocent boys lost in the world of dreams, their soft breaths mingling with the quiet night. The sight tugged at his heart, yet he knew that the game of power rarely spared the innocent. "The fates of princes are woven by those unseen," he whispered, a hint of resolve creeping into his tone. He would not merely be a bystander. He would shape their destiny, whether they understood it or not. With a deep breath, Buckingham stepped back from the door, allowing the shadows to envelop him once more. He turned on his heel with a soft rustle of fabric, glancing down the corridor where the faintest glimmer of light flickered in the distance. In that moment, it felt as though the very stones of the tower held their breath, waiting for the unfolding of a story yet to be written. As he walked away, the air seemed to thrum with anticipation, each step echoing the unspoken promises of power and intrigue. The night was alive with potential, and in the quiet corridors of the tower, a silent observer lingered, watching as the threads of fate began to intertwine in ways that would soon change the course of history. The royal court buzzed with a subdued energy, a gentle hum of conversation that filled the grand hall like a soft melody. Elizabeth Woodville stood at the center, her presence commanding yet cloaked in a veil of quiet contemplation. The sun filtered through the tall windows, casting intricate patterns of light upon the polished floor, illuminating the ornate tapestries that told tales of valor and glory. Yet beneath the beauty of the court, there was an undercurrent of tension, a sense of shifting loyalties that stirred in the air like a gathering storm. Elizabeth glanced around at the gathered nobles, their faces a mosaic of expressions, some eager, others guarded. She could sense the whispers that danced between them, hushed tones that spoke of ambition and uncertainty, hints of Richard's growing influence looming like a shadow over the absent princes. Her heart quickened, not from fear but from the resolve that blossomed within her. She would not remain passive in this delicate game of power. "Your Grace!" A nobleman approached, bowing slightly, his voice smooth as honey. "It is said that the winds of change are blowing through the realm. What steps do you plan to take to ensure the safety of your sons?" Elizabeth met his gaze, her expression steady. "The winds may change, but it is the roots we nurture that will hold firm," she replied, her words deliberate, layered with meaning. She sought allies among the courtiers, her keen mind assessing who might stand beside her in the face of uncertainty. A kingdom speaks in whispers as well as in declarations, she added softly, letting the weight of her words settle in the air. The murmur of the court swelled, a symphony of speculation and intrigue. Indeed, another voice chimed in, a woman draped in rich silks, her eyes glinting with curiosity. But how do we prepare for what is to come? The absence of the princes leaves us vulnerable. Elizabeth felt the room lean closer, their attentiveness a fragile thread connecting her to the fate of her children. We prepare by fortifying our hearts and alliances, she said, her voice rising slightly above the murmur. Let us not forget the strength that lies in unity, even amidst the shadows. As she spoke, Elizabeth caught a glimpse of Richard, Duke of Gloucester, standing at the periphery, his expression inscrutable. The flickering candlelight caught the edges of his cloak, and for a moment she felt the weight of his ambition pressing against her own resolve. The conversation flowed around her like a river, each word a ripple that could either strengthen or weaken the bonds of the court. Elizabeth took a deep breath, centering herself in the midst of the swirling uncertainty. She would navigate these waters with grace, seeking to protect her sons and the legacy of their lineage. Outside, the sky began to darken, the first stars twinkling like distant hopes. In that quiet moment, Elizabeth Woodville understood that the path ahead was fraught with challenges. Yet she would face them with the fierce love of a mother and a determination that would not waver. The court may whisper of change, but she would be the voice that guided her family through the shadows, drawing strength from the very heart of her kingdom. Richard of Shrewsbury stood by the window, the cold glass pressing against his palm as he traced the misted outline of the courtyard below. The half-moon cast a silvery glow over the stones, illuminating the familiar paths he longed to roam. Outside, the night air whispered secrets, rustling through the leaves of the ancient oak trees, their silhouettes swaying gently in the soft breeze. The quietude of the tower enveloped him, a cocoon of solitude that was both comforting and confining. He could hear the distant footsteps of the guards patrolling the courtyard, their armor clinking softly, a rhythmic reminder of the boundaries that now defined his world. Each echo seemed to dissolve into the shadows, fleeting yet persistent, just like the fleeting moments of childhood that were slipping away from him. As he gazed out, Richard's heart ached with a bittersweet longing. He imagined the freedom beyond the high walls, the laughter of children playing in the streets, the scents of fresh bread and blooming flowers wafting through the air. "I wonder if the moon reaches home as softly as it reaches us," he whispered, his voice barely rising above the night's hushed tones. It was a question that lingered in the stillness, a longing for the warmth of his mother's embrace and the safety of his familiar gardens. The courtyard lay quiet under the moonlight, the soft glow creating a dreamlike quality, where shadows danced and merged into one another. Richard's fingers brushed against the cool glass, feeling the chill seep through to his skin. He thought of Edward, his elder brother, whose laughter once filled these walls with joy. Now the silence felt heavy, a weight that pressed down on his small shoulders. Would he understand this longing? Richard pondered, his thoughts drifting like the clouds that floated lazily across the sky. He closed his eyes for a moment, imagining their shared adventures, the secrets whispered under the stars. Those carefree days felt like a distant memory, now shrouded in uncertainty and a sense of foreboding that seemed to weave itself into the very fabric of their lives. Opening his eyes, Richard allowed the moonlight to wash over him, illuminating the hopes and dreams that flickered within his heart. He would not let the shadows consume him. In this moment of quiet reflection, a muted resolve began to blossom. If we are to be kings, then we must learn to navigate these shadows, he murmured softly, his breath fogging the glass, a gentle reminder of the warmth that still existed within him. As the night deepened and the guards continued their watch, Richard turned away from the window, the lingering glow of the moonlight tracing his silhouette. He carried with him a flicker of hope, a determination to find a way beyond the walls of the tower, toward a future that awaited them, filled with the promise of freedom and adventure. The tower gardens bloomed under the tender afternoon light, a serene haven where the vibrant colors of flowers danced amidst the gentle sway of leaves. Edward V and Richard wandered through the blossoms, their laughter echoing like soft chimes against the stone walls, a sweet melody woven into the fabric of this tranquil oasis. The air was rich with the fragrance of lavender and rosemary, intertwining with the faintest whispers of gardeners tending to the earth, their hands coaxing life from the soil. "Look at this one, Richard," Edward exclaimed, kneeling beside a cluster of bright daisies, their petals stretching wide to greet the sun. "It reminds me of your laughter." His brother giggled, the sound light and carefree, as he leaned down to inspect the flower. "Do you think the garden knows our secrets?" Richard asked, his eyes sparkling with a mix of innocence and wonder. He brushed his fingers over the petals, as if seeking answers from the blooms. "I believe it does," Edward replied, straightening up and casting a glance towards the horizon where the sun began to dip, casting a warm golden hue over everything. "These flowers have seen our joy, our fears, everything that makes us who we are." His voice softened, the weight of his thoughts drifting like the clouds above. As they walked further along the pathway, the shadows lengthened, stretching out beneath their feet like gentle reminders of the fleeting day. "Do you think we will always have moments like this?" Richard asked, his tone suddenly serious, a shadow of uncertainty crossing his youthful face. Edward paused, searching for a reassuring answer. "Of course," he said, though his heart felt heavy with the knowledge that their world was changing. "As long as we are together, we can create our own adventures, even here." The two brothers shared a moment of silence, the soft rustle of leaves and distant bird song wrapping around them like a comforting blanket. Edward glanced at Richard, whose innocent spirit shone brightly, unaware of the looming shadows that awaited them beyond the garden's embrace. How he wished to shield him from the treachery of the world outside. "Let's make a promise," Edward suggested, his voice low, yet filled with conviction. "No matter what happens, we will always find our way back to this garden, to each other." Richard nodded earnestly, the sincerity in his eyes reflecting the purity of their bond. "I promise," he whispered, sealing their oath beneath the watchful gaze of the blossoming flowers. As the sun surrendered to the horizon, casting a soft twilight glow, the boys lingered, their laughter still dancing on the breeze. In that quiet hour, the garden became a sanctuary, a final bastion of innocence before the shadows of the tower began to weave their intricate tapestry of fate. And with each passing moment, the weight of the world pressed closer. Yet for now, they were simply two brothers, lost in the beauty of a fleeting afternoon, unaware of the mysteries that awaited them. The echoes of soft footsteps reverberated through the dimly lit corridors of the tower, where shadows stretched and morphed against the stone walls. Guards moved with quiet urgency, their faces etched with concern as they approached the small chamber that had once been filled with laughter and innocence. The air felt thick with tension, as if the very stones themselves held their breath, anticipating the revelation of what lay beyond the heavy door. As the lid guard pushed open the door, the hinges creaked, a sound that seemed to amplify the stillness of the room. Inside, the chamber was untouched, the beds neatly made, the toys scattered about as if the princes had only just stepped out for a moment. But the stillness hung heavily, a stark contrast to the vibrant energy that had filled this space only days prior. "Gone," the guard whispered, his voice barely rising above the hush. The words lingered in the air, heavy and unsettling, like whispers drawn into the night. The other guards exchanged glances, their expressions betraying a mixture of disbelief and unease, a silent understanding passing between them. Outside, the moonlight spilled through the narrow window, casting a silver sheen on the polished stones. It felt almost serene, yet the quiet beauty was deceptive, a stark reminder of the innocence lost. The garden beyond, now cloaked in shadow, stood sentinel, as if mourning the absence of the young princes who once ran freely among its blooms. "Where could they have gone?" one guard murmured, his brow furrowed in thought. The question hung in the air, unanswered, drawing a shroud of worry around them. They had been tasked with their protection, a duty that now felt heavier than the armor they wore. The lead guard took a step back, his gaze drifting toward the doorway, where the flickering torchlight illuminated the darkened hallway. "We must inform Richard," he said, his tone resolute yet laced with uncertainty. The very mention of the Duke of Gloucester sent a ripple of apprehension through the group. Richard's ambition was well known, and now, with the princes missing, the air thickened with implications. As they moved through the corridors, the weight of their discovery pressed upon them like the chill of the night air. Each step felt like a march into the unknown, where shadows whispered secrets yet to be unveiled. The guards exchanged hushed words, their hearts heavy with the knowledge that something had shifted irrevocably within the walls of the tower. And as they approached the chamber where Richard awaited, the atmosphere grew tense, like the stillness before a storm. The flickering torchlight danced against the stone walls, casting fleeting shadows that mirrored the uncertainty within them. Whatever fate awaited the young princes now rested in the hands of those who walked the fine line between loyalty and ambition. The echoes of their footsteps, a reminder that silence could often speak louder than words. The council room within the tower was dimly lit, the flickering candlelight casting a warm glow that struggled against the encroaching shadows. Richard III stood at the head of the long oak table, his fingers lightly brushing the polished surface as he surveyed the room. Outside, The last whispers of morning mist lingered against the stone walls, a soft veil that shrouded the world in mystery. Around the table, the council members shifted in their seats, their expressions a blend of unease and cautious anticipation. The air was thick with unspoken tension, like the stillness that hangs before a storm. Richard cleared his throat, the sound echoing softly against the cold stone, drawing the attention of those gathered. "We must address the recent developments concerning the princes," he began, his voice steady, yet an undercurrent of urgency threaded through his words. "Edward and Richard are no longer within our reach." The weight of his declaration hung in the air, a palpable silence enveloping the room as the council members exchanged furtive glances. Murmurs of compliance rippled through the assembly, a shared understanding lingering beneath the surface. Richard's gaze swept over them, capturing moments of concern and intrigue etched on their faces. He could feel the pulse of ambition thrumming in the room, a reminder that while he spoke of the boys, his own power was intricately tied to their fate. "Now is the time to tread carefully," Richard continued, his tone lowering as if he were sharing a secret. "We must ensure that the wind carries no tales of our uncertainty. The people outside these walls must remain unaware of the shadows that linger here." The flickering candlelight danced, illuminating the faces around the table, each one reflecting the gravity of the moment. One council member, a man with shrewd eyes, leaned forward. "What measures shall we take to secure our position? We cannot allow this knowledge to spread." Richard nodded, his mind racing with possibilities. "We will maintain a facade of stability. The boys will be spoken of as safe and sound, hidden away for their protection," he replied, his voice firm. "Let the kingdom believe their future is bright under my guardianship." As he spoke, Richard felt the weight of responsibility settle upon him, heavy yet familiar. He knew that the path ahead was fraught with danger, and within the walls of the tower, secrets lay buried, waiting to be unearthed. The council members nodded in agreement, their faces a tapestry of determination and unease. They were bound by loyalty to a cause that now felt uncertain, the echoes of their whispered fears resonating in the quiet corners of the room. In that moment, as Richard glanced towards the window where the mist began to lift, he made a silent vow. He would navigate the treacherous waters ahead, for the sake of the boys and for his own ambitions. The shadows may loom, but he would be the master of their story, weaving the threads of fate with an unwavering hand. And as the candlelight flickered, illuminating the determined faces of his council, Richard felt a spark of hope ignite within him, mingling with the shadows that danced just beyond reach. The library was cloaked in shadows, the flickering candlelight casting a soft glow that danced across the spines of dusty tomes. Elizabeth Woodville sat in solitude, her fingers gently tracing the worn leather cover of a book that had once held many stories, the tales of her son's laughter, their shared dreams, and the hopes that had filled these walls. The air was thick with the scent of aged parchment and wax, a comforting aroma that mingled with the coolness of the stone around her. Outside, the world was alive with the sounds of life, the distant chatter of townsfolk, the rustle of leaves in the breeze, and the gentle cooing of pigeons perched on the ledge. Yet within the library, a profound stillness enveloped her, a silence that echoed the questions lingering in her heart. Each breath felt heavy, weighted by the uncertainties that had crept into her life like shadows at dusk. As Elizabeth gazed out the narrow window, her thoughts drifted to Edward and Richard, her beloved boys now shrouded in mystery. "What have you encountered, my little princes?" she murmured softly, her voice breaking the stillness. "What fate has woven its threads around you?" The questions hung in the air, undaunted by the oppressive silence that surrounded her. She closed her eyes, allowing memories to wash over her like the softest caress. She could see them playing in the courtyard, their laughter like music that filled the air, sweet and innocent. She remembered their small hands clutching daisies, eyes sparkling with joy as they ran through the gardens, unaware of the world's lurking shadows. But now, those vibrant days felt like distant echoes, fading into the recesses of her mind. The weight of her fears wrapped around her, constricting like a vine, yet within her heart, a flicker of resolve began to kindle. "I will not let fear bind me," she whispered, her voice steady against the quiet. "I will weave your stories not from what is, but from what might be." Elizabeth straightened, a spark igniting in her chest. She could not change the past, nor could she fully grasp the unfolding mystery that enveloped her sons. But she could stand resolute, a guardian of their legacy, and a mother who would fight against the encroaching darkness. As the candlelight flickered, illuminating her determined features, Elizabeth felt a sense of calm wash over her. This library, a sanctuary of knowledge, would become her refuge, a place to gather strength, to forge plans, and to hope. She would search for her sons, unravel the threads of uncertainty, and embrace the light that still flickered within her, undeterred by the shadows that threatened to consume them all. The bustling marketplace outside the Tower of London thrummed with life, the air thick with the scents of roasted meat and fresh bread mingling with the earthy aroma of damp cobblestones. Vendors called out cheerfully, their voices rising and falling like a lively song, each one vying for the attention of passers-by. "Fresh apples, sweet as summer's day," shouted a woman, her basket overflowing with glistening fruit. Nearby, a man displayed colorful bolts of fabric, his jovial laughter echoing as he tried to entice a group of children to come closer. Yet beneath the vibrant surface of the market, a current of unease twisted through the crowd. Whispers darted between the stalls, weaving through the laughter and music like a shadow. "Have you heard?" one woman murmured to her companion, her voice low, almost conspiratorial. "The princes, they've vanished from the tower." The words hung in the air, igniting curiosity and concern among those within earshot. The crowd shifted like a tide, drawing in closer, each person eager to catch a sliver of the unfolding story. "Vanished," a man echoed, his brow furrowing as he leaned in, his interest piqued. "What do you mean?" "Oh, it's true. They say the guards were caught off guard, and the boys slipped away in the night," the woman replied, her voice barely above a whisper, yet it carried the weight of intrigue. The murmurs swelled, a chorus of speculation that danced around the market, creating a palpable buzz of excitement and uncertainty. "Whispers fill the market faster than wind across the bridge," commented a stout innkeeper, polishing a tankard as he listened. "I've heard tales of curses and dark plots, things that rattle the bones." His voice boomed, drawing nods of agreement from those nearby. As the story swirled, the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting golden rays that flickered through the leaves of the nearby trees, illuminating the faces of the captivated townsfolk. Each new tale added a layer to the mystery, transforming the prince's disappearance from an unsettling truth into a thrilling narrative. Speculation grew like wildflowers in spring, with each passerby contributing their own twist to the tale. A young girl tugged at her mother's sleeve, her eyes wide with wonder. "Do you think they'll come back?" she asked, her voice laced with a mixture of innocence and concern. Her mother knelt down, brushing a stray curl from the girl's forehead. "Perhaps they will, dear. But if they do, it will be with stories of brave adventures," she replied, her eyes sparkling with a hint of hope, even as uncertainty loomed. In that moment, the marketplace became a tapestry of voices, a living echo of the mystery that had begun to weave its way through London. The chatter rose and fell, like the gentle lapping of waves against a shore, each word carrying the weight of promise and trepidation. And as the sun began its slow descent, casting long shadows that danced between the stalls, the townsfolk found themselves drawn deeper into the unfolding story of the princes, their lives now entwined with the fate of two young boys, lost yet somehow still very much alive in the whispers of the city. The evening sky stretched like a canvas above the Thames, brushed with hues of deep indigo and soft lavender, as the last rays of sunlight dipped below the horizon. A solitary fisher stood at the water's edge, his weathered hands deftly unfurling a net that glimmered faintly in the dimming light. The river whispered gently, its surface alive with the delicate rhythm of small waves lapping against the wooden dock. He paused, momentarily captivated by the shifting reflections on the water, each ripple a soft reminder of the stories hidden beneath. "The river holds its secrets lightly, does it not?" he murmured, his voice barely breaking the serene stillness of the twilight. The words drifted into the evening air, mingling with the soft sounds of the world around him. As he cast his net into the depths, the fisher's thoughts wandered, weaving through the turbulent tales of the land he had known. Just beyond the placid surface lay a history of ambition and betrayal, of powerful figures who had once walked these very banks, their desires and fears flowing like the currents beneath him. He thought of the young princes, Edward and Richard, whose laughter had once echoed through the halls of the tower, now mere whispers lost to the shadows. The gentle pull of the water tugged at his net, a subtle reminder of the unseen forces that shaped the lives of those above. With each cast, he felt the weight of unspoken stories, the hopes of a kingdom, the fears of a mother, the ambitions of a man seeking power. Each thought settled within him like the depth of the river, rich and layered, yet still elusive. As twilight deepened, the air grew cooler, wrapping around him like a soft cloak. The fisher leaned against the dock, gazing out across the water, where the first stars began to twinkle above, little beacons of hope against the darkening sky. "There is much we cannot see," he whispered to the river, "but I feel it flowing through us all, shaping our paths in ways we may never understand." The gentle lapping of the water seemed to respond, a soothing balm to his contemplations. In this tranquil moment, he found solace in the knowledge that while the world above may be filled with chaos and uncertainty, the river continued to flow, steady and eternal. It was a reminder that life, much like the waters of the Thames, held mysteries that would one day reveal themselves, as long as one remained patient and observant. As the stars blinked awake in the velvet sky, the fisher gathered his net, feeling a sense of quiet resolve settle within him. He turned his gaze back toward the tower, its silhouette stark against the twilight, a reminder of the stories yet untold. The mystery of the princes lingered like the gentle ripples on the water, urging him onward, deeper into the night, where the currents of fate intertwined with the secrets of the heart. The dim chamber held a palpable tension, its heavy stone walls absorbing the whispers of the two figures that stood within. Richard, Duke of Gloucester, leaned against the mantel, the flickering light from the single candle casting elongated shadows that danced across his sharp features. He regarded Buckingham with a keen gaze, the weight of unspoken intentions hanging thickly in the air between them. Ambition and caution dance a tight minuet, does it not? Richard's voice was low, laced with a hint of irony, as he watched Buckingham's expression shift with the flicker of the flame. The Duke's demeanor was carefully crafted, yet Richard sensed the simmering energy beneath his calm facade. "Indeed, my lord," Buckingham replied, his tone measured, but the tension in his posture betrayed him. "Yet we must tread lightly. The winds carry more than just whispers these days." He stepped closer, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial murmur. "The kingdom holds its breath, waiting for a sign. We cannot appear too eager, or our rivals will pounce." Richard's lips curled into a faint smile, though a shadow crossed his eyes. "You speak wisely, as always. The crown rests uneasily, and the absence of the princes unsettles the court. Yet, there is opportunity in chaos." He gestured toward the window, where the last light of day faded into a deepening twilight. In the heart of darkness, new paths are often forged. Buckingham met Richard's gaze, an unspoken understanding passing between them. "You would play the hand of fate, then?" he asked, a note of caution threading through his voice. "We must consider the consequences. The people love the princes, and to act against them could spell disaster. Or it could redefine power within the kingdom," Richard countered, his voice smooth yet firm. "The loyalty of the people is fickle. It can shift like the tides. What they desire is strength, and they will follow the one who offers it." The shadows danced around him, accentuating the resolve in his eyes. As the candle flickered, casting an ethereal glow across the chamber, Buckingham's expression hardened. "Then we must be careful how we approach this. A misstep could lead to ruin, and I will not see us fall to the very shadows we seek to manipulate." Richard stepped closer, the weight of his ambition palpable. "Fear not, my friend. We will weave our plans in the night, unseen by those who would question our motives. The dance of shadows requires both grace and cunning." Buckingham nodded slowly, the tension easing ever so slightly as they shared a moment of silent agreement. Outside, the night deepened, the soft sounds of the city fading into a hushed stillness, as if the world held its breath, waiting for the next move in their intricate game. With the flickering candlelight as their witness, the two men stood at the crux of destiny, each heartbeat echoing the promise of power and the peril that accompanied it. In that dim chamber, amidst the shadows, the threads of fate intertwined, weaving a complex tapestry that could shape the future of the kingdom, one careful step at a time. The flickering light of the hearth cast a warm glow across the cozy room, illuminating the faces of eager children gathered around the elder, who sat comfortably in a well-worn armchair. The walls of the cottage were lined with shelves filled with books and trinkets, each holding a story of its own, while the scent of wood smoke mingled with the sweetness of honeyed tea brewing nearby. Outside, the soft rustle of leaves whispered secrets as the evening settled in, wrapping the village in a blanket of tranquility. "Gather round, my little ones," the elder called, his voice rich and soothing, like a favorite lullaby. The children shifted closer, their eyes wide with anticipation, faces aglow with the dancing flames that flickered like stars in the night sky. "Tonight I shall tell you a tale of princes, magic, and mysteries that have woven their way through our land." The children gasped, their imaginations igniting as the elder began. Long ago, in a time when shadows stretched longer and dreams felt within reach, there stood a great tower, a tower of secrets and whispers. He paused, allowing the weight of his words to sink in, the crackling of the fire punctuating the quiet. Within that tower lived two young princes, Edward and Richard. He continued, his voice dipping lower as if sharing a cherished secret. In their hearts lay the laughter of childhood, a laughter that could chase away the darkest of fears. But the world beyond those stone walls was filled with danger, and they were not alone in their tale. The children leaned in closer, their breaths held as the elder spun the narrative. There were those who coveted power, who would do anything to seize it, men whose hearts were as dark as the night sky. Yet amidst the shadows, a spark of hope remained, as the bonds of family and love stretched across the chasms of ambition. As he spoke, the room transformed. The children could almost hear the echoes of the past, feel the weight of the prince's fears and dreams. And so, my dear ones, the story unfolds, a tale that dances on the edges of truth and legend. For in every heart, even the hearts of the smallest, lies the potential for bravery and the power to change fate. The flame flickered, casting playful shadows on the walls, and for a moment, the children were transported, their thoughts intertwined with those of the princes. In the warmth of our hearths, the past gently whispers through the flame's glow, the elder said softly, his eyes twinkling with wisdom. It reminds us that while the road ahead may be shrouded in mystery, together we can find the light. As the story wove its way into the hearts of the children, they nestled deeper into their blankets, the comforting presence of the elder wrapping around them like a soft embrace. Outside, the stars twinkled brightly, guardians of the night, and within the cottage, the tale continued, a legacy to be cherished, a reminder that every mystery holds the promise of adventure, waiting patiently to be discovered. In the gentle embrace of dawn, a serene meadow stretched beneath an awakening sky, brushed with soft hues of pink and gold. Dewdrops clung delicately to the blades of grass, sparkling like scattered jewels in the first light of day. The world around was hushed, as if holding its breath, waiting for the sun to fully rise and usher in a new day filled with promise. Nestled within the meadow, a child lay peacefully, their small frame curled up against the soft earth, the warmth of the sun beginning to caress their cheeks. A cascade of golden hair spilled across the grass, framing a face relaxed in slumber, lips slightly parted as if caught in a dream. In the stillness, the only sounds were the gentle rustle of leaves swaying in the morning breeze and the distant call of a lark, welcoming the dawn with a melodic song. In this moment, the child dreamt of kingdoms where adventure awaited around every corner. Imagined castles rose high against the clouds, their towers reaching for the sky, while knights and dragons danced through the vibrant landscape of their imagination. "One day, we shall weave our own tales anew," the child whispered softly, a smile playing at the corners of their mouth, as if already crafting stories of bravery and wonder. As the sun ascended higher, its golden rays began to stretch across the meadow, illuminating the vibrant colors of wildflowers that dotted the landscape. The light shifted subtly, casting playful shadows that danced around the child, awakening the world from its night of slumber. Each beam of sunlight felt like a gentle nudge, coaxing the child from the depths of their dreams. With a soft sigh, the child stirred, eyelids fluttering open to reveal bright eyes that sparkled with the remnants of dreams. They blinked against the light, momentarily disoriented, yet a sense of calm enveloped them as they took in the beauty of the meadow. The air was crisp and fresh, filled with the sweet scent of blooming flowers and the promise of a day yet to unfold. In that tranquil space, the child felt a connection to the stories woven throughout the generations, tales of princes, of hidden treasures, and of courage in the face of uncertainty. They sat up, brushing the dew from their hands, feeling the earth beneath them pulse with life and potential. This moment, this dawn, felt like an echo of the past and a whisper of the future, a reminder that every ending held the seeds of a new beginning. As they rose to their feet and took a step forward, the meadow blossomed around them, alive with possibility. The day stretched out before them like a blank page, waiting to be filled with the adventures that lay ahead. And beneath the vast sky, the child took a deep breath, ready to embrace the mysteries yet to be uncovered. A heart full of hope and dreams unfurling with each passing moment. The Tower of London loomed majestically against the darkening sky, its silhouette a steadfast guardian of time. As the sun dipped below the horizon, hues of deep crimson and soft indigo washed over the stone walls, painting a scene both haunting and beautiful. The day's last light flickered like a whisper, casting long shadows that stretched over the courtyard, where laughter and cries had once echoed, now replaced by an unsettling stillness. In the cool evening air, the tower stood resolute, its ancient stones cradling the secrets of generations long gone. The wind carried with it the faintest echoes of history, a symphony of voices long silenced, murmurs of ambition, love, and betrayal that clung to the very fabric of the stone. In silence, old stones remember, a voice might have said. Had the walls possessed the gift of speech, for they had witnessed the rise and fall of kings, the innocence of children, and the weight of countless dreams. As twilight deepened, the stars emerged one by one, dotting the sky like tiny sentinels keeping watch over the realm. Their soft glow illuminated the tower, emphasizing its timelessness, a monument to the mysteries that persisted beyond the understanding of those who walked the earth. The night wrapped around it like a shroud, inviting contemplation and beckoning the curious to ponder the stories hidden within its shadowed corners. The air was rich with the scent of damp earth and the distant aroma of wood smoke wafting from the village nearby, a reminder of life continuing outside the fortress's walls. Yet within, An air of expectancy lingered, a feeling that the past was not wholly settled, that the unanswered questions still stirred, waiting for the brave to seek them out. As the moon cast its silvery glow over the tower, illuminating the stones in a soft luminescence, the world felt suspended in time. Here was a place where history breathed, where the very atmosphere pulsed with the weight of untold tales. The mysteries of Edward and Richard, the lost princes, hung like a delicate veil over the landscape, tantalizing those who dared to remember and dream. In this moment of quiet reflection, it became clear that the tower was not merely a relic of the past, but a living entity, a keeper of stories yearning to be told. And as the stars twinkled overhead, the promise of a new dawn lingered just beyond the horizon, hinting at adventures yet to unfold, echoing the timeless truth that every shadow holds a story waiting to be discovered. The soft hum of the library was a comforting embrace as a single lamp flickered to life, illuminating the dust motes that danced gently in the air. The stillness was profound, broken only by the quiet rustle of pages turning and the occasional sigh of a chair shifting against the wooden floor. In this sanctum of knowledge, a lone researcher sat, her brow furrowed with concentration, her fingers gliding over the spines of ancient tomes that lined the shelves, like guardians of forgotten tales. As she leaned closer, the faint scent of aged parchment filled her senses, mingling with the faint aroma of polished wood. Each book held a world within its pages, a tapestry woven with the threads of history, mystery, and the echoes of those who had come before. She reached for a volume adorned with intricate gold lettering, a collection of stories from the time of the princes. The cover felt cool beneath her fingers, a tangible connection to the past that stirred something deep within her. With a soft sigh, she opened the book, the pages whispering secrets that had been waiting patiently for someone to listen. Her eyes danced across the text, absorbing the words that spoke of ambition, love, and betrayal, all woven into the fabric of the kingdom. Each line was rich with the emotions of those who had lived and died by the sword, their dreams and fears echoing through time. Sometimes, she murmured to herself, it is the knowledge that eludes capture which spurs curiosity ever forward. The thought lingered in the air, a reflection of her own relentless pursuit of understanding. She considered the stories of Edward and Richard, the vanished princes whose fates had become a haunting melody in the realm of whispers. What had truly happened to them? What threads of fate had woven their disappearance into the tapestry of history? As she continued to read, the shadows of the library deepened, the soft glow of the lamp creating a sanctuary amidst the encroaching dusk. The world outside faded away, and in this cocoon of solitude, she felt connected to the lineage of seekers who had come before her. The mysteries of the past were not just relics to be studied. They were living stories, waiting to be reawakened. With each turn of the page, her heart quickened, for she knew that the answers lay within these walls. The quest for truth was not merely an academic pursuit. It was a journey into the very essence of humanity. The flickering flame of the lamp cast a warm glow, illuminating her resolve as she delved deeper into the unknown, eager to uncover the stories that had shaped a kingdom and to breathe life into the echoes of the past. In that quiet sanctuary, as the night deepened outside, the researcher felt a sense of peace wash over her. The mysteries of the princes would not remain buried forever, not while there were those willing to seek them out. And with that thought, she turned another page, the whisper of history guiding her forward into the heart of the story yet to be told.